Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range to have some fun with a couple of different handguns that promise to be probably the biggest news in the polymer frame striker fired market space in 2017. One of the handguns is already on the market, and I've done videos on both of these guns already, but this one is the Beretta APX. This little handgun is really impressing me. I like the gun. As I mentioned in my original video, I wasn't all that impressed with the aesthetics of it, but once I got my hands on it and started to shoot it, I really came to appreciate the overall design of the gun. We'll delve more into that here in a few minutes. The other gun you already know, it's the CZ P10C. This little handgun I really think is going to cause quite the stir when it actually gets on the market. So the APX is already shipping. You can go out and buy them right now. We're still waiting for these to release. CZ has moved back that release date a little bit. So Sam and I both are going to shoot these guns, go a little bit more into detail about the guns, how we like or dislike their ergonomics, how they shoot, and compare them side by side, because I'm sure you guys are looking at these two handguns and considering them perhaps for personal defense or carrying or just even plinking. So let's get started and do a direct comparison between these two Goliaths in the striker fired 9mm pistol market for 2017. All right, guys, we're going to kick off the video simply by shooting both handguns, one then the other. I'm going to start off with the Beretta APX. We're going to talk about a size comparison, some of the feature differences between the two handguns, but just general shootability is something that I think most of us would agree is kind of important. So the Beretta is a slightly bigger handgun than the P10C. The P10C is meant to compete with the Glock 19, and the Glock 19 is a very good size for concealment, which is why it's so popular in the concealment community. And it's so much like the Glock 19. In fact, it uses the exact same holsters. I've yet to find a holster that the P10C will not fit into that was made for the Glock 19. The Beretta, on the other hand, is a little bit bigger, and we'll get into those differences here in a second. But let's just talk about recoil impulse. So I have some 124 grain Freedom munitions, just standard military type ball ammunition. This is our newly manufactured stuff. I'm gonna run a magazine out of the APX. I'm gonna quickly pick up the P10C and run a magazine out of it and see how they compare in terms of recoil impulse and how quickly I can get the gun back on target and all that good stuff. So here we go with the first 15 or 16 rounds. I don't even know how many rounds it holds. I have to count. All right, 17 rounds, center of mass. It has a fairly mild recoil impulse. It jumps a little bit. You'll see it kind of bounce and come back down, but the recoil impulse isn't that bad. Let's go ahead and set the APX aside and quickly grab the P10C. Again, same Freedom Munitions ammunition, and let's see how the P10C behaves. All right, center of mass again. I think doing that direct comparison, I want to say that the CZ feels, okay, I can't say for certainty, but it feels like it's shooting a little bit more flat. It doesn't feel like it's jumping as much, but the recoil impulse feels a little bit more abrupt to me. It just seems like it's a sharper transfer of energy to the palm of my hand. Very minimal difference, but I do think I like the way that the P10C handles the recoil. We'll let Sam give it a try next and see how he feels about the APX as compared to the P10C in that recoil department and shootability department.
All right, guys, so I'm going to do the same test that Tim just did. I do bring a slightly different perspective being a left-handed shooter. There's certain things I look for in a handgun or a feel that I perceive that's a little bit different. I mean, it's an intangible for righties to explain. It's there, I promise you it exists. But first up is the APX. I do like the ergonomics of the gun. Both Beretta and CZ take good advantage of modern 3D molding technology. Is much more advanced than it was 35 years ago. So the ergonomics for both these guns are very well thought out. I think that they're very comfortable. The ambient controls are also nice for both. I really can't say which one is better, but here we go. That's pretty nice. The APX is right. Tim said that it has a bit softer like recoil impulse. It's all like feeling and perception and your opinion. It's a very subjective type test we're doing right now, guys. So take whatever Tim and I are both saying with a grain of salt and see for yourself if you ever get the chance to shoot both these guns together. Now, I will say I do come into this evaluation a little bit more biased towards the P10C. It's just, this gun's super exciting to me for whatever reason. Here it is. All right. He was correct, and I would agree that the recoil impulse with the P10C is a bit more abrupt. I guess I feel it in the heel of my palm a little more, but it's not uncontrollable at all. Sights settle back on target quickly. They're all center mass shots there on the rubber dummy. Some in the neck there, but that's not a big deal, whatever it is. Yeah, if you force me to choose between one of these two guns, it's not going to be because of the way it feels with the recoil. It's going to be because of other features due to size, the feel of the trigger, the controls, the sights, all that different stuff kind of goes into it. But anyway, let's move on, and we're going to look at some of the features and measurements of the guns next to each other and how they compare size-wise and trigger weight and all that different stuff. So here we go.
Let's take a look at the triggers now between the two guns. Let's start off with the CZ P10C. The gun is empty, no magazines inserted. We've checked to make sure that it's empty. So what we're going to do is, I've left my digital trigger scale back at the office. I did find it, but it's back at the studio. I'm going to use my analog here, which is an RCBS analog digital, non-digital trigger scale. You kind of got to pull these at a slightly different angle because of the safety in the trigger. Pull it, and it breaks just a hair over 5 pounds. All right, so it's just a hair over 5 pounds. All right, now keep in mind, guys, this is a pre-production sample of the P10C. CZ sent me a picture of the trigger springs. They've changed them. That's what we have to contend with here, guys. Train horns. But they've changed the weight of the trigger springs. I have the wrong trigger spring in this one, so the trigger should be just a hair lighter than the 5 or so pound trigger pull. All right, let's go ahead and clear the APX, reset the trigger scale, and let's see if we can get a reading on the APX. All right. That one is a little bit closer to 6 pounds, so it's a little bit heavier. All right, and that seems to ring true. I think both Sam and I agree that the P10C's trigger is just a little bit lighter. What's nice about the P10's trigger is that it has, you pull it up, it doesn't feel like a plasticky trigger whatsoever. You pull it, and it really kind of sort of surprises you when it goes off. You get to that stopping point, it stops, and if it goes any further, it goes bang. So there's no sponginess, there's no creepiness. The trigger just comes up, hits a wall, and if you push it any harder, bang. All right. The APX is a slightly different trigger. I can't say that I felt a trigger like it before. So let's see what we get here. I pull it, it's a little bit mushy, creeps back, no wall, and it just goes bang. So basically has a somewhat plasticky feel throughout its pull. It seems to have a consistent weight pull, but then it just goes off. So it's not, the CZ is more of like a 2-stage trigger. The APX just pulls, you take the slack out of it, you take the safety off, the trigger immediately hits resistance, and it just creeps back and goes bang. So I will definitely say that P10C has a slight advantage over the Beretta, but don't get me wrong, guys, this Beretta trigger is not bad. It's far better than any Glock trigger you've ever tried. I will not say it rises to the level of a PPQ or a VP9, but this is a very good trigger, and it doesn't rise to the level of a P10C in my opinion. Let's talk about the reset. So here I'm going to pull the trigger. You'll see where it breaks, all right? A little bit of over travel, not much. I'm going to go ahead and cycle the gun while holding the trigger to the rear, and I'm going to release it and show you where it resets. Right there. Extremely short reset, and there's full release of the trigger. Again, watch it as it goes bang. Okay, we'll go ahead and reset the striker. We'll let it out. Right there's your reset and full release. Let's take a look at the P10C. All right, the trigger sticks out just a little bit further, has the same internal safety of the trigger. I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger so it comes back. Right there's where it hits that wall, okay? So you'll see how it comes back, it hits that wall, and if I push any further, click. Okay, a little bit of over travel. So now let's take a look at the reset on the trigger. Coming out, right there, reset. And that's full release. Okay, one more time, pull it, that's the wall. Any further, bang. And then the reset is right there in full release. So comparing the two side by side, if I had to pick one, the P10C has the best trigger. As a matter of fact, I like the way the P10C, its trigger feels more so than a PPQ. A lot of folks are going to say a PPQ is the ideal striker trigger because it's just so clean and light. I don't like super light triggers in my handguns that I carry. I want right around 5 pounds, and both of these guns come into that pull weight right now. I want a 5-pound trigger or so because if I'm amped up on adrenaline, and I know the first rule of safety is never put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to fire, but guys, when things go sideways and you're shooting, you're not paying attention to your trigger finger. There is a chance that you're going to have your finger on that trigger, and with adrenaline, 5 pounds becomes 5 ounces very quickly, and you can have a negligent discharge very easily. So I like a little bit heavier trigger pull. I don't like hair triggers in my defensive firearms. Target firearms like 1911s, make them as light as you want, right? But if you're going to carry it, carry something with 5 pounds or slightly heavier. But in my opinion, the P10C wins. Let's talk about the disassembly between the two different pistols. Now, the P10C kind of follows in the Glock model of disassembly. It's become a very popular model where basically you have a bar you pull down, pull the trigger, and the frame and the slide separate. Beretta uses a slightly different approach. They have a button that you push here and a lever on the other side of the pistol that you rotate down. You have two choices. You can pull the trigger to release the striker, or you can use the tip of a bullet or a small punch to push a button on the side of the gun to decock it to release that striker. So that's for those of you that don't want to actually have to pull the trigger, all right? And no, neither one of these guns have a magazine safety in them, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead, make sure the gun's clear, no magazine in the weapon, chamber's clear. I'm gonna go ahead and disassemble it. So I'm gonna first push on this button on this side, and while I'm doing that, I'm gonna rotate this lever down. Actually, it has to be cocked. Push on this button, rotate this lever down, and now I'm just gonna pull the trigger, and it just comes apart, okay? Now, let's first take a look at the top half of the APX. A lot of the guys in my last video said that looks like a complete mess talking about the recoil spring. This is what's called a nested spring, guys, and this is actually a good design. You have two different springs with two different spring rates in there, and I think this is probably what helps make the APX feel like such a soft shooting handgun. As the slide moves rearward, the spring rates change, and then, of course, the slide stops and begins its forward travel. I think this probably has something to do with the reason why both Sam and I agree that this gun shoots a little bit softer than the P10C. Take it out, it is a captive spring, and then you take your barrel out, just a basic Browning design. Now here's where the two diverge considerably. The P10C does not have a chassis system. SIG started making the P320, which is a very popular pistol, and they started using a chassis system where you could take the trigger group out, and then the polymer frame is a non-serialized part. This isn't the gun. This little metal component, this chassis inside here, is the actual firearm with the serial number. What does that mean? Well, it means you can change the configuration of the gun. You can go to a longer grip, you can go to a shorter grip, you can put a pick rail down here, you can get rid of the pick rail, you can change colors, you can do all sorts of stuff, all right? Now here we go, guys. I've never taken this thing apart. I didn't do it in the last video, and I have not read the instructions. So I know, just by playing with it, that the takedown lever, you just kind of wiggle it around, and it's just going to pull right out. Okay, so there's the takedown lever. So now the front part of the chassis is free to come out. It'll start moving. You can see it start to move a little bit. Here in the rear, we have a spring hooked over a pin, and that is a retaining spring. I'm going to use a punch, proper size. I'm going to try to pop that pin out. This is your disassembly button that releases the striker. This is the pin that holds the chassis in. I'll try to push that pin out here. See if I can push it past that spring. I can't. So I'm going to have to lift up on the spring and push on the pin once I get it out of its little recess there. Okay, I got it up. See if I can hold it there. Grab one more punch and push on that pin. And there we go. All right. Now I know you guys can't really see what I've done, but now I can push this pin through. And there's the rear pin that holds the chassis in place, all right? Set this over here on the slide so I don't forget it. I'm gonna pull the punch out, that spring drops, and now I should be able to just pull the chassis out of the gun. That little striker deactivation button right there is holding it together still. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push that in, and that's gonna release it. There we go. Okay, and now the separation. Right. Okay, so there's your chassis system, and the serial number is right here behind the slide stop. So this is the gun, guys. This little piece right here. This is just a polymer shell, which is replaceable. Now let's see if I can put the gun back together again. Let's set it in there, set the chassis in. Looks like everything just kind of sort of lines up on its own. I have to push that decocker button in. Popped right in. All right, so that was pretty easy. Now I need to lift that little spring up. I don't know if you can zoom in enough and see that little spring inside there. Can you see it in there? All right, that little spring has to come up, and so I can put that pin back in.
Important to note, Tim, is the pin only goes in one direction.
Yeah, the pin has a little cut on it. You're probably not going to be able to see it, but this pin has to go in this way because that spring rides in that little notch cut in the pin, and that's what keeps it from falling out during use. All right, so I'm going to pry this up a little bit here. This looks actually pretty simple. I say that. Pry that spring up. Put the pin in place. There it goes. And that's it. All right. So it's not super simple, but it's not impossible putting this back in. You just kind of rotate it till it finds its way. There's a little flat spot on one side you line up. And now my disassembly lever's back in place. I take my slide and put it back on. We all got ears. I don't have my eyes on, but let's just check function here really quick. Looks like it's working. So there you go. The chassis system of the APX gives you a gun very much similar to the P320 in modularity. Now, also, real quickly while we're talking about the grip frames, the APX has, and I've shown you guys, go back and watch my original APX video. I'm not going to go through how to take all the grip panels apart, but the APX grip panels come off, but they go around the grip all the way around, okay? So you can not only change the thickness, but you can change the width of the grips. Got it. With these little grip panels, okay? That's a different feature than the P10C. All right, let's take a look at the P10C. So the P10C has the replaceable back straps, but it's just the back strap, okay? It doesn't come around, it's just the back strap. Now, one of the things I've seen people talk about with the Beretta, because it comes around, you can buy those grip panels and you can stipple them if you want to. And if you don't like the stipple job, replace it. If you do that to the P10C, you're actually stippling your grip frame. All right, we're gonna make sure that the weapon's clear, no magazine. Okay, now very much like a Glock, okay? I'm gonna pull the slide slightly to the rear, pull down on the takedown levers after I've pulled the trigger and made sure that the striker was home, and it just comes apart like that. Now, it does look like there's a chassis in there, but there are actual 1, 2, 3 roll pins holding this metal chassis in place. I don't think that CZ recommends that you take that chassis out, but you can see from this side the roll pins that are holding everything in place. All right, so it is a chassis, but it doesn't look like it's user serviceable. That's probably something that CZ would recommend you send to the factory to do. The actual serial number is on the frame and not on the chassis, like a SIG P320 or an APX, okay? So that's another indicator that they really don't want you taking that chassis system out. Disassembly, captured guide rod and spring, looks surprisingly like a Glock. And then a very beefy little barrel lockup system. It's very broad. Look how big the feed ramp is and how big that locking lug is. Very large surface areas there. So it's just basically a Browning action. The two guns are very similar in that regard. So only the real big difference there, guys, between the two is a slight difference in how they come apart. And the APX is a modular system which allows you to change the lower out where the P10C does not. So while we're talking about those features, they're both pretty much the same. They're both ambi guns. They both have slide stops on both sides of the pistol. The P10C has a magazine release on both sides of the pistol, which sets it apart from the APX, which has a slide stop on both sides of the pistol, but does not have an ambi magazine release. It's set up right now for right-hand use. With the punch, you can push it into a little tiny hole here, it will release, and it's user serviceable. You can reverse that magazine release if you're a left-handed shooter to make it a left-hander's gun. One of the other things that I mentioned previously in video was this little pin that pops up when you pull the trigger. See how that's sticking up? And I was kind of curious as to what it was for. Well, I knew what it was, but I didn't know why it protruded. So I called Beretta to ask them. This pin is something that Beretta uses as a safety measure. When you pull the trigger, that pin going up tells you that your firing pin block safety is working. All right? This is something they started way back when. The Model 92 has this feature. The M9 service pistol has this feature. If you load your weapon and before you go to put it in the holster, you're not pulling the trigger and you see this pin sticking up, it's become so fouled that the internal safety is not working, and this is your warning that the weapon is not safe to carry. So it has a purpose, but Beretta tells me that they are looking at different options for the APX down the road, and if you do want to put a slide cut for an RMR on here, there is a way, and perhaps Beretta will offer a slide cut for a RMR or a delta point in the future. So it's not ruled out by them. So I just wanted to explain what that was because I hadn't cleared that up in the last video. Well, Sam and I are going to share our final thoughts on these two guns and which we think might be better than the other one. And you'll notice he's left-handed and he naturally points his muzzle that way. And I'm right-handed and mine naturally points that way.
Mega safety.
We are mega safety guys here at the Mac channel. But anyway, seriously guys, it's really kind of tough to pick a favorite between these two. When I first was introduced to the P10C in the Czech Republic, I was really blown away by the gun, and I know that the guys I traveled over there with from Guns and Ammo, they were blown away by it too. The gun sets well in your hand. It feels very familiar to you if you like CZ style pistols like the 09s and the 07s, but it's the same size as the Glock 19, fits in the holsters, has a much better trigger, probably one of the best combat triggers, let's call it that. One of the best combat triggers on a striker fired handgun. It's not the lightest like a PPQ, it's just a very good trigger.
Yeah. So some of you guys will follow Mike Pannone on social media. I know that he's sponsored by CZ, but I agree with the statement that he put in a comment or a group on Facebook that we were both following, a thread about the P10 when it was first released. He said it does out of the box what a Glock does, a Glock 19 does after a trigger job, some grip massaging, and some accuracy work with an aftermarket barrel. This does it out of the box. That's a pretty tall order, but I am confident that that is what this product delivers.
But it's even more...
Is it super revolutionary or like next gen? No. What it is, what the modern striker fired handgun should be, with modern manufacturing technology and 3D modeling and 3D molding techniques and all this, the most advanced manufacturing technology. That's what this has done.
Guys, and I'm not sponsored by CZ. I just like the handguns. I actually carry a CZ. I used to carry a Glock 19 for many, many years. This is what the Glock should have evolved into. In my opinion, Gaston Glock has sat on his laurels for the past 35 years and hasn't innovated squat. And he's let the competition catch up to him with guns like the P10C and the Beretta APX. So yes, I know a lot of you guys are sick and tired, like, oh wow, another new striker-fired polymer handgun. And I get it, guys. It's just different flavors, right?
Yeah.
And it really boils down to what you personally like. So some of you may want an XD, a Glock, an M&P, Beretta, or a CZ P10C, whatever it is. But there is a gun out there for you, and one of them will definitely fit your hand better than all the others, and that's the one you should carry. Now, when it comes down to the Beretta, when I first saw pictures of this thing, I was not impressed. I thought, And
it's
most
funny
of it,
looking.
It's funny looking. Most of it had to do with those slide cut serrations. But guys, this is probably one of the most practical fighting handguns I've seen, simply because everything is so well thought out. It has a big, bright front dot sight up here. It's larger than the rear sights, although they're not night sights. But these serrations, which look to me originally kind of goofy, are highly functional. I can grab this gun from anywhere on the gun, and I have plenty of bite, and those are really sharp little serrations. So you have a lot to grab onto. Some of the folks, let me see that P10C, will say that there's not much to grab onto because they've tapered it here. I don't think that's true. These are like little cheese graters.
Yeah, the serrations are well done, just like the 0709 series. You know, this is a slide on frame instead of a slide in frame, which a lot of people had a comment about.
Yep.
But you know, the characteristic and the DNA of CZ really comes through in this product. I feel like we're talking about this gun a lot, but credit needs to be given to Beretta for the APX, being a chassis gun, having, you know, achieved ergonomics like they did, rather.
Harmonics. Harmony
with the ergonomics.
Ergonomic
Oh my
harmony.
gosh.
It
But
does
anyway,
feel good.
it's a great, they're both fantastic products. People want to see these type of comparisons, and I feel like people are rooting for one over the other, and they want to see one fail and one do the other. But the thing is, at the end of the day, is choose what you want. They're both fantastic products made by companies that have well-established pedigrees of quality with all their products, so you can't really go wrong with either of them.
Yeah, you know what, guys? If I was a brand new gun buyer and I was looking at these two guns, Sam's going to say the P10C.
All day, man.
One thing I want to say is that this gun has more features. So if you get sick of seeing a black pistol grip on it, you can change it to something else. It's very stipple friendly because
just a non-issue to me.
The grips come around, the grips that you replace wrap around the pistol grip, so you can stipple them. Don't like the stipple job? Throw it away and buy a new grip that wraps around. It just seems to have a few more features than the P10C. With that being said, being that I have just about every modern striker-fired handgun on the market, I like the P10C more. It seems like a very good carry gun.
Yes.
This one's just a little bit bigger, just a scotch bigger as we talked about, a little bit heavier, but that P10C is just a tough gun to beat. I think it's probably going to be one of the top striker-fired pistols in 2017, and this one's right on its heels. Glock, you're in trouble. You better wake up, snap out of it, and start to innovate, because your 30-year-old design's getting kind of crusty.
Yeah, it sounds like we're trying to be malicious towards them. It's not true.
I love Glocks.
It's a great product. It's well established, but the thing is the up and comers. I don't want to say up and comers because these two brands have been around for
these aren't new brands.
But
this one's 500 years old.
Yeah, these new products from these established brands are the forefront of modern technology, as I mentioned, with manufacturing techniques and all that different stuff. This is it, man. This gun is. I've said before, if you follow me on social media,
he is so in love with this gun.
I don't get excited about new guns, and I don't know what it is. I haven't put my finger on it quite yet, what it is about this gun, but I am so excited to see these out in stores and start seeing them in people's hands and get a lot of people out there shooting these CZ
It cracks me up. He does not get excited about guns. When we watch a video about a new gun, he's like, yeah, whatever, fine. He will not
whatever,
stop,
but
he doesn't stop talking about this thing. The whole drive out here, I'm really in love with that CZ, man. I love that CZ. I can't wait till I get one of those CZ. I love that CZ. I've never seen him that excited. Me, I just like the gun, but I'm really kind of digging the Beretta too. I'm just lucky that I have them both. It's personal preference, guys. You're going to get a good gun no matter what you decide to pick up. So I know that's indecisive, and you guys go, oh, come on, man, pick one. It's like picking a favorite gun.
Yeah,
I can't do it.
Pick one yourself.
They're both solid performers, and just pick the one that fits your hand the best, that you shoot the best, that has the features you want. You're going to wind up having a good choice no matter what. If you guys have any questions about anything you've seen this video, you can ask those questions down below. We do try to stick around for the first couple of days after a video goes live to answer the questions you may have. And if you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms channel, please swing by and check out Copper Custom. It's the best possible way to support us. And please be sure to check out full30.com. That's full30.com. We've taken all the web's best firearms content creators like Sam and brought them under one roof.
I'm not on Full30.
Well, you are now.
Oh, yeah, okay, never mind. There you go.
And that is full30.com. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks.